welcome to Good Game. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex.
It is our second last episode of the year, and we've squeezed everything we can out of the games on offer, haven't we, Hex?
There have been a few extra long gaming sessions this past week, Bajo.
Indeed, and I have needed them because I've jumped back into the world of Warcraft to check out the latest expansion, Warlords of Draenor.
If you beg like a good dog, my father may be able to identify what's left of your tiny skull.
Also this week, we look at a game that explores the often unseen side of conflict in this war of mine.
And Goose asks why we like to watch gaming online.
Technology enabling a social behaviour that has always existed.
That social need that we used to get from playing on a couch with somebody.
Plus, we check out two games from two local developers, Framed and Crossy Road.
But before all that, can you name the game for this week?
Framed is a new game that comes to us from Melbourne developer Love Shack, and it's been getting quite a lot of buzz.
Hex, at first I thought this is a cute game, but will it really keep me interested for long? Cut to a couple of hours later, I'm running around the office asking advice and developing strategies on how to get through the tougher levels.
Yeah, from the get-go I thought the idea behind this game was simple brilliance. Each level is presented like a comic book, a group of panels that tell a story. That story, a much sought after briefcase containing some sort of secret, is being pursued by three shadowy figures.
As you run, crawl, and climb through these panels, there are various obstacles stopping you from making a clean getaway, such as locked doors, dead ends, and plenty of G-men.
The twist in the tale is that you can move individual panels around, and with each move you bring your character closer to being on the lam with the goods.
What I like the most about this game, Hex, is the way they introduce the new mechanics. Not all panels simply move around. Some are on timers and need to be placed at just the right moment. Some twist around, and this changes the entire page. And others have switches and levers that need to be activated. They really mix things up.
Yeah, I like those new mechanics too, but I wish they explained things a little bit better. There was a bit of trial and error with a few of those block movements, but right when I was just about ready to give up, something clicked and I was quickly onto the next page.
I would have liked to have seen how those animations play out adjusted a little. Every time you make a change and want to see how it affects the outcome, you need to watch through the entire sequence. And this does prolong things a little.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It might have been nice if they just left off from the last correct move or some kind of mid-page checkpoint.
But these are really small niggles, aren't they? Pretty much everything about this game is great, from the motion capture to the music and the puzzles themselves. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's an 8 from me. And while we're in the region of Melbourne-based developers, let's also take a look at Crossy Road from a group calling themselves Hipster Whale.
Only in Melbourne.
The team behind this have taken the simple question of why did the chicken cross the road and turned it into a deadly game of survival.
It certainly raises the blood pressure, doesn't it? This is essentially an endless runner, or in this case, an endless crosser. And of course, it's not just a road you're trying to get through, it's also train lines, rivers, and multi-lane freeways.
Thinking quickly is key to getting a high score, but if you try to take your time or plan a strategy, well, this happens.
This is a free-to-play game, and if chickens aren't your thing, there are heaps of other characters to unlock or purchase, such as penguins or people.
This is obviously in the same family as Flappy Bird or Doodle Jump, but with a little bit more design and quality to it, I think. So I'm giving it 7.
Yeah, this is a well-made game, but it's not really anything revolutionary or anything we haven't seen before. It's kind of filling that void, that tap-happy void, until the next tap-happy game comes out. But I'm excited to see what these guys come up with next. I'm giving this 6 out of 10.
Now, speaking of hipsters from Melbourne, here's Goose with the news.
Sometimes Goose is such a hipster that he wears 2 scarves.
Have you seen his new glasses?
I know.
They are like even more hipster than the last glasses. They look great though.
We love him, he looks fabulous.
Here's what's making headlines this week. The competitive Counter-Strike global offensive scene has been rocked by a hacking scandal. Just days before the launch of the DreamHack Winter Championship, 3 professional players were caught cheating the system by Valve's anti-cheat software. Pro players Hovik Tovmassian, Simon Beck and Gordon Geary were kicked from the tournament. In addition, teams Titan and Epsilon, who Tovmassian and Geary represented, were dropped from the roster and did not compete for the $250,000 prize pool.
Bomb has been defused. Counter-terrorists win.
Far Cry 4 has given video game pirates a severe case of tunnel vision. Prior to the game's official PC launch, the game's field of view slider, considered a vital feature on the platform, was absent. Users who acquired the game legitimately received a day 1 patch which added the feature. The pirates did not receive the patch, and so they took to Twitter to shame the developers for leaving the feature out. A responding tweet from the game's creative director Alex Hutchinson made swift work of shaming the offenders. It reads, "PC players, if you're online complaining about the lack of field of view control, you pirated the game." Development studio Double Fine has been hit with layoffs. 12 employees were let go following the cancellation of an unannounced project after the project's publisher backed out. According to founder Tim Schafer, the studio's upcoming titles Broken Age, Massive Chalice and Grim Fandango Remastered are unaffected by the layoffs. On a more positive note though, Bioshock developer Irrational Games is hiring. Earlier in the year, the company made structural changes which drastically reduced the number of staff. 70 permanent positions were dissolved at that time, leaving just 16 employees, including creative director Ken Levine. However, recent job listings on the studio's official website indicate that the studio is back in production. And that's all for this week. Back to you guys.
Alright Hex, it's time to geek out about World of Warcraft for a bit.
Oh, more WoW, Bajo. I'm sick of World of Warcraft.
I know, that's why I've set up the 1992 classic Playgirls for you on the arcade machine.
Playgirls? Really?
Yeah, have a good
Wasn't
time.
there something else that you...
Warlords of Draenor is the 5th expansion for World of Warcraft, and I'm all in.
Oh, this is just terrible. Do I want Junie or Anita? Junie.
Bring it on! Are you so eager to meet death? Rise up, Iron Horde! Bring your war chief their heads. You will all die! War chief!
It's weird to be reviewing a game which is now 10 years old, especially as the last expansion, Mists of Pandaria, didn't quite hit the mark for many. But Warlords is a big deal. For a start, there are now local servers here in Australia. My ping has gone from 300 to 8. 8. Look at it. Ah! And along with its massive pre-patch, Blizzard has tried to reshape some of how this game works to make it look and feel more modern, and to tell a more emotive story. That's right, Blizzard expansioned some feels.
In the light, we are one.
A strange portal has opened in the blasted lands, and all the WoW servers across the world crashed when it did.
World server is down. Thank you everyone and good night.
But eventually, after days of long queues, we got to go through. This zone has been inspired by a couple of paragraphs from the Warcraft 2 manual about the Red Planet Draenor. So this expansion is going sideways in time, an alternate timeline, and your job is to stop an invasion.
Storm the portal!
With most MMOs, I don't usually read the quest text. Who's got time for that? I've got new pants to get. But this starts with such a bang. You're constantly fighting alongside key WoW characters. There's betrayal, epic battles, and tragic loss.
Protect our family, chieftain.
Each zone has a couple of cutscenes for the more dramatic moments, but it's all the little stories that play out as you're questing that really fill in the lore, although I did find it a bit hard to follow overall. But whether it's an epic siege to confront an orc leader full of new mechanics or vehicles,
Oh, the devastation.
or simply trying to find a goblin's lost pawn collection, it's dynamic and varied questing, and it doesn't even feel that grindy. The landscape and enemies change so much in tone and fight style, and that's what impressed me the most. You'll see a lot more positional attacks, especially from the rare loot-dropping silver NPCs who are just everywhere now.
Oh, he turned around. No!
I think you could argue that Blizzard have taken some cues from more recent MMOs on that front, and enemies and NPCs do feel like they belong in their zone more than ever. They'll often run their own idle AI routines, which usually involve around fighting each other.
And vanish leaders.
Dungeons tie into the story more now too, and they're full of great ideas and bosses. I especially liked the intense fights of Skyreach. I really want to try them on heroic difficulty to see how the strategies push on teamwork, because they're pretty easy on normal for experienced players. There are some frustratingly fun moments too, like when you're fighting against the wind, and you generally just have to move around so much more. There's less tank and spank, and more holy crap, what is happening? I'm on fire, and we're dead. The raid structure has changed a bit now too, it's more flexible. You can bring over friends from other servers, and many of the raids now scale with player count. This means if someone drops out due to real life issues, it's not going to be a big deal. So back to the world questing, overall it is really solid, but my main criticism is that it's just so easy. And it's such a shame when there are all these great mechanics and fights out there, but you'll smash most of them on autopilot. Also, there are so many quests that if you try to complete them all, you'll probably get close to or even hit the cap before you venture into this alternate version of Nagrand, for example, which is such a shame. It's a great looking zone with fantastic creature design. Plus, you can choose to roll through this zone in a mother-flipping tank. And the reason you can now get a tank is because of the garrison. We recently spoke to lead game designer Ian Hazakostas about this idea.
This is a huge feature, and it's really an integral part of your journey through Draenor. It is, in many ways, it harkens back to some of the real-time strategy roots of the genre as a whole. I'm going back to like Warcraft 2 days of base building. But it's also the story of what you're doing in Draenor. As mighty a hero as you might be, you can't take on the Iron Horde, and you can't defeat Grommash on your own. You need to raise an army, you need to build a base, you need to recruit followers, and kind of build on a force that can take on this army.
This is kind of their answer to MMO housing, and I'm still getting my head around how it all works. Basically, you quest for resources and improve and upgrade the buildings of your choice, and this can give you benefits in the field of Draenor, such as choosing to have that tank you can call upon, or a variety of other bonuses depending on the zone. It's also nice how NPCs you meet out in the field will occasionally appear and have quests for you in the garrison too. You'll also be sending your own recruited NPCs off to do quests, and that all happens in menus, and it's a bit of extra business to deal with. It's a great idea, but I actually found some of it a little tedious over time, clicking through all of those chests. The best part about the garrison is that you can put in crafters. For example, if you're not an enchanter, you can build a structure that comes with an NPC who can do it for you, and you just put in work orders.
The eternal sun guides us.
The pre-Warlords patch also came with a redesign of the visuals. It gives everything a bit more definition and flair, from lighting to animations to character models, and I think that's the main reason why I actually started playing again. There's also a new mixed PvE/PvP endgame zone called Ashran, which after crunching 10 levels in just a few days, I actually haven't spent that much time in yet. I didn't find that many people to fight, but it is a new type of endgame for WoW, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over time. One of my favourite additions, even though it may only be temporary, is the PvP map South Shore vs Tarren Mill. This is based off an old world zone, which used to see some pretty intense world fighting between Alliance and Horde back in the vanilla days of WoW. Oh, those were the days. But botting is a real problem with PvP at the moment, and this is where people use a mod or a program to play their character for them. Bots ruin the beautiful strategy of a PvP map, and I hope Blizzard find a way to fix that once and for all. But the biggest change to this expansion is ability pruning, and we also spoke to Ian about that.
Pruning is actually, in many ways, the exact correct term for it, because it's actually, pruning is what you do to like an unruly bush or some vegetation to enable it to grow in better, more fruitful ways. And 10 years on, we have a lot of developments, a lot of growth that's occurred to the game as a whole in the meantime, but also there's a lot of redundancy and a lot of things that in retrospect aren't necessary anymore. And what all that leads to is both complexity that makes the class less approachable, but less design space when we want to give you something new and cool. When we do have a good idea for something that we feel is genuinely going to improve the class, we run into this wall of players telling us, well, I have no more room in my action bar. I have no more keybinds left on my keyboard unless I make this like Control-Shift-4 or something. This pruning kind of frees up space to let us give people cool new toys.
I imagine there'll be a lot of adjustment and forum stress as people get used to how their character now plays. I'm playing a subtlety rogue, and I am struggling with some of the changes that have been made to that spec, even though I know it's probably for the best. I honestly thought I'd never touch WoW ever again, but every time I log out, they log me back in, and they've done a really good job with this. The presentation is top-notch, the Orc storyline is full of drama and good fights, and you're constantly being rewarded with random gear finds and random epic and rare upgrades as well. And when I sit in those busy zones and I see all the people, all those different classes with unique mounts and gear, all those people just on my server alone living out their virtual lives, you have to be in awe at just how big and fleshed out this MMORPG has become. I tip my hat to Blizzard on this one. I'm giving Warlords 9 out of 10 rubber chickens. All right, Hex, time to move on to Goose's story.
Oh, just a minute, Bajo. I'm about to reveal the final Playgirl.
Here's Goose.
Hey guys! So in case for some reason you hadn't heard, the biggest YouTube channel on the planet right now belongs to a gamer who goes by the name PewDiePie, with 32,400,000 subscribers. That's 8.5 times as many subscribers as the Red Bull channel, 5 times as many as the official League of Legends channel, and 3 times as many as Justin Bieber's channel. So why on earth has watching someone else play games become so popular?
You know, there's this terrible cliche about gaming being kind of solitary experience. It's you, screen, controller. The reality is, from the day gaming began, it was watching your friend play and then let me have a go and I'll see how I do this. And it's always had that social element. And now what we're seeing is that dynamic that goes back to the very beginning has now been spread on a global scale. So I actually think what we're seeing now is technology enabling a social behaviour that has always existed.
We used to play GoldenEye for hours, we used to play Mario Kart for hours, but these days when we watch somebody streaming online or they're streaming a game and watching them playing, I think we're sort of scratching that social need that we used to get from playing on a couch with somebody.
Watching my kids, especially kids who've gone through the Minecraft phenomenon, you know, they'll spend as much time watching the now celebrity YouTubers explore everything you can do in Minecraft. And if you want to do something in Minecraft, you're naturally going to go to YouTube first to find out how to do it, who's doing it.
Hi, my name is Panny and welcome to my channel, Super Pannyland.
Internet and gaming go very well hand in hand. The people who are interested in one tend to be interested in the other. Given that YouTube is so big and such a broad variety of content, it only makes sense that they'd be looking for gaming content on YouTube.
The most subscribed YouTuber at the moment is a gamer, right? And I think it's just a really big sharing community. I think the online gaming community has always been very sharing.
And one of the easiest ways to share is through the popular streaming service Twitch, which launched back in 2011 and now has over 55 million users.
So people enjoy watching gaming online for a number of reasons, right? One of them, it's engaging because you get to not only watch and be a part of the show. I mean, you get to like engage instantly with the person that's hosting it. So if a broadcaster is broadcasting, right? You are talking in the chat, and if the broadcaster sees you, he can talk right to you instantly.
I think, you know, any way people want to consume it is great. I find the whole idea of watching someone play a game to be strange. You know, it's like take the thing that's unique to us and the thing we do well, and then don't do it. But, you know, any way people want to consume the game or consume media is great, you know, so it's not what I would do.
60% of people watching games play out on Twitch actually don't own the game that they're watching. So they're watching it as a purchase decision. And then, of course, there's just the separate personality. I want to see people play this game live because they're really funny. And one of the other ones, people that just want to watch people play because the game is so terrible.
Regardless of whether they're showing off, freaking out, or just staying in, we're now seeing a whole range of personalities emerge with this unique skill of engaging audiences for hours and hours on end. So while it may appear that we're chewing through all of this bandwidth for the games alone, the truth is there's an ever-growing celebrity culture at the heart of all this.
I mean, people have definitely created themselves personas, and I find that they're not often characters. They're not completely separate created characters, but quite often they're more of an expansion from the person's own personality.
A lot of people on television, they become, you don't really know who these people are, but when you're watching your favorite broadcaster, it's really them. It's a really grassroots experience. And so those people, when they realize their voice, I'm not talking about like the craziest or the funniest or the most over the top, I'm talking about the people that are able to find their voice, whatever it is, are able to captivate other people, make them feel at home, and those people stay, and their viewership just keeps growing and growing and growing.
What they are, in general, is a hyper-realised version of themselves. So there's a slightly brighter, a slightly more vibrant version of themselves. What the rise of the YouTube celebrity has given us is people who are famous largely because of how they do things, rather than necessarily what they are doing.
Net fight!
I'm so uncoordinated. I just want to get one.
It really is a difficult field to break into, I think, because there is such a large variety of gamers on YouTube, and you've got so many different parts to it. I think going into it with a unique idea of what you want to achieve is definitely a good thing to do.
I think if anyone knew the answer of what makes things work on the internet, they would be very rich by now. I think the wonderful, charming thing about YouTube is that, you know, you can get all kinds of levels of production, and that at the crux of it, it's the content that matters.
I don't think that there is a formula to it or a strategy, but I think if you just make stuff that you're comfortable with and you're really happy with and has your voice and your personality, then even if it doesn't work out, at least you've done something that you can be proud of, rather than like, oh, I'm gonna do this to be like this person. Like when that person started, they weren't trying to be anybody other than themselves.
And while this trend is changing the way we choose to consume our games, in truth, it might actually be telling us more about the future of broadcasting than that of gaming.
I think the future of entertainment is going to be one half entertainment and one half technology meshed together. It just happens to be that right now, that is happening with gaming. Who knows what's gonna happen when it goes into like music or when it goes into Hollywood and all this other crazy stuff. It just happens to be that our audience is a little bit more tech savvy, so they're more open to tech, entertainment, mashed into one. Obviously, it's gaming.
Everyone keeps talking about how TV's dying, and maybe it is. I don't know, I don't watch much TV. I certainly did when I was a kid, but not anymore. But why not come and look for the people who are online who have ideas? Because they're generating audiences with nothing other than their own personalities, some of them, so they've got to be doing something right.
There's a generation that learnt how to use the internet as a tool, and there's a generation that were born with it, and it began as a canvas. It was a plaything, it was a fun thing, and from that, the way your brain approaches it is from a fundamentally more creative standpoint. And with that will come exciting things, because when you don't think of something as a tool, when you think of something of it as the fabric of your life, the way you interact with it is different. And I have no idea what that's going to be. I hope it's awesome and not terrifying, but I don't know.
It's certainly not the first game I fell in love with. I was already a pretty big gamer by that point, but Shadow of the Colossus had a pretty big impact on me. I just was completely unprepared for the feeling that you get roaming that world, bumping into these huge, crazy creatures, climbing them and killing them in this really uncomfortable way. That was like, I came up to one of those guys initially and was like, he's kind of cute. I kind of like him. But I feel like the game's telling me I've got to climb and stab him. I guess I'll do that. I mean, I hope this is for the right reasons. and how that game unfolded narratively without really any dialogue or cinematics or that kind of thing, just through that interaction with those bosses and the complex feelings that you get through that was kind of a good revelation early on for me of what games had to offer that's unique, that's distinct from other storytelling medium.
always happens on somebody's doorstep. These are the words of Amir Sarimovic, a survivor of the siege war of Sarajevo. It's his story and the stories of many other war survivors that inspired the game This War of Mine, brought to us by 11-Bit Studios.
I saw soldiers from my balcony. You woke up and you had nothing left. There were mortar shells and bombs falling on the streets, killing and looting. I know one thing. It might happen to anyone.
Day 1, and you are in control of a group of survivors who have taken shelter in an abandoned house. You'll have to make sure the basic needs of each character are met to ensure their survival. Warmth, hunger, sleep, and medicine if they get sick or injured.
So it's kind of like The Sims, really, only way more depressing.
Yeah.
Naturally, though, supplies are scarce in times of war. And while you spend your first few days searching the house for whatever you can find, it's not long before you'll need to venture out. As each day ends, the time comes to prepare for the night ahead.
To start with, you generally have 3 or 4 civilians to look after, and you'll need to decide who gets to sleep, who will stand guard, and who will go out and scavenge. Of course, you can have everyone just stay home and sleep, but with each person getting hungrier by the day, that's rarely a luxury you can afford.
Yeah, plus raids from passing thugs are an almost nightly occurrence. So it's wise to put at least one person on guard, although without a weapon to defend themselves, things will still get stolen and your survivors will get injured in the process.
It's horribly bleak, isn't it?
It really is. The art direction and animations beautifully set the mood as well. It's sophisticated and detailed, and as each survivor becomes more tired, weak, and hungry, you'll see it in the way they move and carry themselves.
Each scavenge mission is nerve-wracking and perilous. Initially, there are only a few locations for you to explore, but more open up as the days roll on. And many of the locations you scout are inhabited by others trying to survive themselves. Sometimes you can negotiate with them or trade, but more often than not, if they catch you in their space, they'll be instantly hostile and attack you.
Oh man, when I lost my first survivor on a scavenge mission, I felt horribly responsible. I just took too many risks. You have such limited time to find materials, and each day that passes, everyone gets hungrier and colder.
Yes, and the importance of getting as many materials as possible to try and craft weapons, better tools, things like beds to ensure your people are better rested. It really is paramount. It becomes an almost impossible balancing act as you try to prioritize which items are the most important to make with the limited materials and time you have available.
Sometimes people will come to your door asking to trade or even asking for your help. Helping out other survivors is not only a kind thing to do, but it can reward you with some supplies as well. But it also means one less person to stand guard or scavenge during the night.
It's always a trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah, and if hunger, sickness, injury, and the constant threat of invasion isn't enough, the sheer hopelessness of this awful situation could be that final straw that causes your survivors to simply give up and lose hope. There's a wonderful tenderness to the action of trying to lift their spirits, to support them. But as the days pass and things still don't get better, sometimes it's just not enough.
It's moments like this that really set this game apart from other games within this wartime environment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So often games simply explore war in a very two-dimensional way, but here it's very obvious that this is influenced by the stories and experiences of real people. And the weight of that carries through.
Yeah, and isn't it incredible that we're starting to see this side of games that are based on themes of war? Similarly with Valiant Hearts earlier this year, which was another really creative, emotional perspective on the horrible nature of war, but still folded into that video game format.
Yeah, it adds depth and maturity, doesn't it? I also find that because you live through so many failures, it really adds to that sense of wartime hopelessness. But it works well to develop your approach to long-term survival.
This is definitely one of those games where you'll need to start over a few times and try new strategies to set yourself up better with each new attempt.
Just knowing which locations to visit first, how much to risk, what you should arm yourself with. It often takes multiple failures to learn, but no two playthroughs are identical either. So don't expect the same trader or civilian to turn up at your door each time. You have to be ready for anything.
I just found bag space to be the biggest issue for me. You need every available slot to grab as much gear as possible for your people. But then you should probably also carry a weapon too. Sometimes a shovel or items to barter with in case you encounter someone who can give you medicine or precious, precious food. Wasting a night due to poor bag management decisions can have huge repercussions.
One thing I didn't like was that the houses all have listed the level of danger and what provisions they have available.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit odd as well. It should really be only something you discover once you've at least visited that location once.
Another interesting thing to mention is that some areas of the city aren't so poorly affected by the war. So there's a moral issue at play with whether or not you choose to steal from defenseless people just living in their homes, or risk taking from thugs who can and will kill you on sight.
At one point I saw an army officer threatening to molest some girl. I didn't have a weapon, but I thought maybe I could just sneak in and get a jump on him and help her out.
Yeah, you really can't assume that anyone will take your side or be friendly. Each decision you make carries with it risk. It's thrilling and challenging and upsetting all at once.
What are you giving it?
Well, this was a really unique and interesting experience. I love the risk-reward factor and the way you are constantly managing the needs of all your survivors. But the way they created this environment really had me invested a lot more than I usually am with these kinds of survival games. And as a result, the stakes seem higher. I'm giving this 9 out of 10.
This generated such a sense of anxiety in me, just trying to make everything work. But the other thing it did was create that horrible sinking feeling when you know it's all over. There's no coming back from your mistakes. You either start again or wait for death or starvation to come. It's bleak, but then so is war. I'm giving it 9 as well.
Hey, stop before you get on that ship. There's a question you need to ask yourself.
No, Bajo, there's no time. I'm approaching the terminal now.
Do you see attacks? Do you see attacks?
Bajo, the self-destruct sequence is jammed. I'm gonna have to detonate it manually.
She's out there somewhere, and I will find her.
Damn it, man! Morning.
Hex! I thought you were gone!
No, I'm fine.
I thought I'd lost you forever! There's so much I want to say to you, so much I need to know!
Well, what do you need to know?
I need to know, did you name the game for this week?
It was Lights Off, which was released back in 2007. Developed by Lucas Newman and Adam Betts, it basically took the mechanics of the classic Lights Out game and brought it to mobile. The idea was simple. Turn off all the lights as the screen toggles through a series of more complicated animations. And it's our Name the Game this week because it was the very first game you could play on iOS devices. So early, in fact, that you had to jailbreak your phone in order to get it.
Isn't that incredible? You had to hack your phone to play a game on it.
Next week, it's Christmas. Well, for us it is anyways. We'll be celebrating the end of the year with our 1 hour special of Good Game.
Yes, and we'll have games galore, including The Crew.
We'll also be looking at the Inuit adventure, Never Alone.
Plus Little Big Planet 3 and Super Smash Bros.
And our annual Good Game Awards, our Years in Review, Dave Callan, and heaps more.
So until then, Bajo out.
Hex out.
This guy's got like 8 wolves chasing him. Oh, my vanish isn't up. Let's do this.